once and for this is take two. Okay, good morning to members of the media, and let me take this opportunity to thank you for coming here this morning to cover what we consider to be a very important press conference. This media conference is to launch in Trinidad and Tobago the 7th Assembly of Caribbean People. The 7th Assembly of Caribbean People is a very important process, and we felt it necessary to share with Trinidad and Tobago exactly what is the Assembly of Caribbean People and why it is important for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, why it is important for the region. But I think it's also important to give a little bit of historical background. This would have started the idea of having this, what we can call a pan-Caribbean process and a pan-Caribbean space for social movement, started as far back as 30 years ago in 1987. At the 50th anniversary of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, there would have been an international book fair. And at that book fair was one called John LaRose, who is a prominent Caribbean, well, Trinidad and Tobago poet, but well respected throughout the Caribbean. And he said that at that time, he said it is important to have a space for civil society, for social movements, for Caribbean people, workers and Caribbean people, to have a discussion around where we see the region. This, bearing in mind, took place some 4 years after the US invasion of Grenada. And therefore, there was a lot of discussions. It was a tumultuous period for the region at that time. In 1991, we would have seen the collapse of the Soviet Union. Not only did we see the collapse of the Soviet Union, we had this idea promulgated by the North that it was the end of history. In other words, that capitalism and neoliberalism was going to be the only way in which the world will organize itself. But for the region, it was felt that it cannot be the only way. There must be another way, especially for the Caribbean region. And so in 1992, there was a preparatory conference. And at that preparatory conference, it was felt that it was absolutely necessary for the Caribbean region, the social movements within the Caribbean region, which included workers, farmers, young people, women's movements, and community groups, to come together and have a discourse as to where do we see the region? What is the vision for the Caribbean outside of the Caribbean governments? And so, in 1994, the very, very first Assembly of Caribbean People was held with some 400 delegates from across the Caribbean. And when we talk about the Caribbean, especially in the context of the Assembly of Caribbean People, we are not only speaking about the English-speaking Caribbean. We are speaking about the Pan-Caribbean. We're speaking about the Spanish-speaking Caribbean. We're talking about the French-speaking Caribbean, the Creole-speaking Caribbean. We're even talking about the Dutch-speaking Caribbean. So this concept of the Assembly is really encompassing the entire Caribbean, notwithstanding the language barriers, bearing in mind our common history. In August of 1994, right here in Trinidad and Tobago, this first assembly was held. And the theme, interestingly, was sovereignty of the region and welfare of the people. And it was held at a very peculiar moment in human history because not only did the Soviet Union collapse, it was also the emergence of the World Trade Organization, the WTO, and this idea of neoliberal trade. And so there was the feeling at that time that there was a real threat to Caribbean sovereignty. Since then, there have been some six assemblies. The next one, it was held in 2001 in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and that is where the 7th assembly is going to be held. We are going back to Santo Domingo. In 2003, it was held in Haiti. In 2008, in Cuba. In 2010, Barbados. And in 2015, Curacao. And this year, 2017, the 7th assembly will be held back in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And it's interesting because exactly 30 years ago, at the OWTO's 50th anniversary, this idea emerged. And so we are having the 7th assembly in Santo Domingo on the 80th anniversary of the OWTO. The OWTO, through the then David Abdullah, played a very instrumental role in the shaping and organizing of the Assembly of Caribbean People. he continues to sit on the Regional Executive Committee, and for this reason, you would find that the Oilfield Workers Trade Union is again playing a critical role in the organizing and the preparation of the 7th Assembly of Caribbean People. To my immediate right, we have Candice Sebro, who is an Education and Research Officer at OWTU, and she sits on the Regional Executive Committee, preparing and organizing at the regional level with the responsibility for the English-speaking Caribbean. And later on, I will introduce the entire local organizing committee. The ACP really is a dynamic collective construction by social movements. It is the idea that social movements have a role to play in shaping the destiny of a society. And in terms of the Caribbean society, the role of social movements, the role of the mass movement throughout our history is very well known and very well documented. And therefore, it is in the context of that tradition, in the context of that role played by the social movements, that we have now, in this period, in this particular moment in history, we have the social movements, which encompasses, as I said earlier, farmers, trade unions, youth, women, and other community groups coming together to discuss exactly what is the course that the Caribbean must take in the context of the current global situation. And what is that global situation? The theme for this 7th Assembly of Caribbean People speaks to where we are in this moment of history. And the theme is as follows: confronting the global crisis together, we strengthen the movement for the integration of the Caribbean, sovereignty, and the welfare of our people. Today, we are confronting the reality of a global crisis, which makes the future extremely uncertain. Challenges to our sovereignty, that places even greater hardship on ordinary Caribbean people across the Caribbean. Some of these very concrete challenges include: 1, climate change. This itself threatens our common Caribbean Sea. We have the increase in terms of the risk of natural disasters. And natural disasters affecting small islands and small economies can have devastating effects. When we think of earthquakes and hurricanes that have damaged considerably islands such as Cuba, Haiti, even the smaller ones like Grenada, Dominica. Therefore, natural disasters are a real existential threat to the Caribbean, and therefore climate change is of great concern to the Caribbean people. The second is this rise of right-wing nationalism and populism in the global north, and especially with the election of Donald Trump. And we've seen only recently the extremities in which the Donald Trump administration is affecting people. For us, in the wider Caribbean diaspora, that has serious implications for our brothers and sisters who live in the north. In fact, and we want to take this opportunity right now to condemn strongly the threat by Donald Trump's administration against Venezuela. In other words, what we are seeing is another tendency towards imperial intervention. And we've seen it right here in the Caribbean. We've experienced it in Grenada. The third issue that we will be addressing is the crisis of debt. The Caribbean is one of the most indebted regions in the world. Many of our Caribbean countries are facing extreme economic crisis, and this is coupled with extreme debt, which is creating extreme poverty for our people. And when I say our people, I speak of the wider Caribbean family. We've seen a breakdown of solidarity within societies, not just between societies, but within societies. And the breakdown of this solidarity within these societies has created a situation where our young people are alienated, which is fueled by criminal enterprises and by corruption. These are the manifestation of a crisis that has at its roots the crisis of global capitalism. Neoliberalism, capitalism, has been shown as unsustainable, but as also as unsuccessful in terms of resolving the contradictions that perpetuates the crisis and have us going through cycles of crisis after crisis, economic crisis, governance crisis, social crisis, and of course, political crisis. The ACP, therefore, the Assembly of Caribbean People, seeks to address and have discussions around these themes. In terms of the conference itself, this will take place on the 26th to the 30th of October in Santo Domingo, and the very specific themes that will be discussed at that conference includes, as I will read. 1, Caribbean integration and alternatives to the neoliberal model and the struggle against debt domination. 2, implications for the Caribbean of the new offensive by the right wing and imperialism against progressive change in Latin America. Colonialism, militarization, cultural imperialism, identity in the Caribbean, and reparations will be the third theme. 4th, food sovereignty, agrarian reform, climate change in the Caribbean, decent housing, labor rights, and the struggles of social movements for the conquest and defense of the rights of our peoples. And 5, migration, free movement of people, and issues affecting our Caribbean diaspora. The preparatory process for the 7th Assembly of Caribbean People would cover a broad-based debate throughout the various countries that will be participating. And as I stated, these countries would come from the English-speaking Caribbean, Spanish-speaking Caribbean, French-speaking Caribbean, Dutch-speaking Caribbean, and even the Creole-speaking Caribbean. It is a very, very crucial assembly, especially in this current moment in history, when we live in a world of grave uncertainties, when we consider the President of the United States and the President of North Korea, when we consider the Brexit, which took place just about a year or so ago. It is a time of great uncertainties, but it's also a time of opportunities. It's a time for us as Caribbean people to come together as social movements and redefine our existence and our place in the world, and charter a way forward in terms of bringing redress and bringing about much more equity and equality within our societies. In terms of the local process, this morning we are launching the local organizing committee. To my left, we have Crystal Cicheran, who is working here at the Oilfield Workers Trade Union, and Crystal Cicheran will chair the local organizing committee. The local organizing committee will also have, working there, we have from the Youth for Social Justice, Kevin Agostini. We also have Chantel Johnson, a labor relations officer at the Amalgamated Workers Union. To my right, we have, as I indicated, Candice Sebro, an education and research officer who sits on the Regional Executive Committee. And of course, we have representing the Joint Trade Union Movement, we have Ram Kumar Narayan Singh, who is the Chief Labor Relations Officer of the Amalgamated Workers Union. Other organizations that are part of the local organizing committee includes the Highway Reroute Movement, in order that we have the environmentalist grouping represented. We have Shiraz Khan representing farmers. We'll have the Farmers Union. We'll have CAFRA, ensuring that we have the women's movement on board. And we'll have a representative from the Trinidad Youth Council also on board. And we have Nicole Hendrickson, who has worked for a long time on the Assembly of Caribbean People process. She would also be on the local organizing committee. Let me take this opportunity to recognize Comrade Nikki Johnson, who has been working ever since she arrived at OWTU on this process and have ensured that Trinidad and Tobago has been represented in at least 2 of those major assemblies, the one in Barbados and the one in Curacao, and as well as Cuba, so 3. I would just like to say in closing that the local process will include the bringing together of many groups across this, the social movements in Trinidad and Tobago. these groups will come together and discuss and debate the themes which I have outlined here this morning. After those debates, Trinidad and Tobago will have a position which will be then taken to the Assembly in October 26th to the 30th in Santo Domingo. In closing this media conference, I would just like to say that we have no choice as Caribbean people. We have no choice. When we consider where the world is and where it can go, we as Caribbean people have to intervene. We have to make our contribution to the global discourse. We have to make our contribution to chartering a different path for humanity. The path of neoliberalism has brought about great misery for many, many people across the world, whether it's in Africa, Asia, even Europe, and certainly in Latin America. The threat right at our doorstep to our brothers and sisters in Venezuela is real, and it will affect us in the Caribbean. We cannot allow, and we will not sit by in 2017 to allow that sort of military intervention so close to our own shores. We will not, in 2017, allow imperialist intervention in our region. We have been a region that have gone through many, many, many pains, many sufferings, but we are also a region of great strength. We are a region that have committed and that have produced many great contributors in many different fields. And so we'll continue to make that contribution. And so as we prepare for the 7th Assembly of Caribbean People, we say one Caribbean, one people, one destiny. Thank you. I would just like to play for for members of the media, the song that was commissioned for the 1994 First Assembly by David Rudder, and it's actually called One Caribbean. So I'll just play that shortly for you. Overarching theme of the Assembly, one Caribbean, one people, one destiny. Are there any questions? Yeah, we good? Okay, let me thank members of the media for coming out here this morning and covering what we consider to be a very important process that will be launched here in Trinidad and Tobago, which will be the local organizing committee and the process of debates and discussions that will take place to come up with a Trinidad and Tobago's position for the 7th Assembly of Caribbean People, to be held on the 26th to the 30th of October in Santo Domingo. Thank you.
Right now I'm feeling the tension, and there's too much to mention. It take up all my attention. Holy of everything you accuse me, and all the times you abuse me, but now you cannot refuse me. Holy I was born in a village. I learned my upbringing, where all was forgiven. So I'm in tune with my bust me. The blues they belting like they want to bust me. No matter what they do, me I no bound to them. Way they get in, no like they want to come for me. So let them come for me.
Tell them we don't afraid nobody. All of them will walk on front with anywhere we go. We afraid no man and afraid no demon. Tell them we don't afraid nobody. All of them will want to stop. We tell them we don't afraid no woman, afraid no stick and afraid no demon.
I say holy V, holy V, holy V, holy V. We gon' come out hard to find them like we name total man. Holy V, holy V, holy V, holy V. We gon' come out hard to find them like we name total man.
Tell them we don't afraid nobody. All them bad mind people, them who trying to stop we. See them with a big stick like they want pay me bloody. Hit them with powder, tell them on the stick and dirty. Stick and dirty. Yes, they call me inhuman, descendant of the blue one. And this is my dominion.
Holy V, holy V.
I have made preparation, I have faced tribulation. This is my declaration.
Holy V.
In the deep bush where I come from, serpents and scorpions just run when they see my right hand. Peering down for destruction. Oh, afraid of no man and no boy and no woman, no girl and no thing. Came here to battle and fight for my life while I'm hearing them sing.
They come out to bust me. The blues they belting like they want to bust me. No matter what they do, me I do bound to them. Way they get in, no like they want to come for me. So let them come for me.
Tell them we don't afraid nobody. All of them will walk on front with anywhere we go. We afraid no man and afraid no demon. Tell them we don't afraid nobody. All of them will want to stop. We tell them we don't afraid no woman, afraid no stick and afraid no demon.
I say holy V, holy V, holy V, holy V. We gon' come out hard to fight them like we name total man. Holy V, holy V, holy V, holy V. We gon' come out hard to fight them like we name total man. Tell them we don't afraid, tell them afraid. Tell them we don't afraid, afraid. Tell them we don't afraid, afraid. Tell them we don't afraid nobody.
Hey!
Oh, yo, try time. Yo, Marshall, the party at
Party nice, yeah. It's Charlie.
I know what them say. The party nice, nice, make people say. Oh, 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 oh. Look on the girl there, her bumper up, she a back it up, like a dumper choke up, the third leg up. If I not Remy, then I Johnny Walker. Me feel nice, but me warm brata. Marshall, I went from my show data. Whoa, oh, sexy lady, your waistline amaze me. Come here, girl, me turn in a VIP. Bend your back, girl, sing it on it and hey, sexy lady, your waistline amaze me. Come here, girl, me turn in a VIP. Bend your back, girl, sing it on it and come in love how she pon me. Like a guitar she play pon me. Nobody move, girl, stay pon me. And turn it back way pon me. Me love how she pon me. Like a guitar she play pon me. Nobody move, girl, stay pon me. Turn it back way pon me. Me say, my crew we go the hardest. Turn up the party regardless. So girl pop champagne and wind up your body, cause you know say you got this. Girl lift it up like a harness and come sing pon me cardless. Because the party so nice, when half is said twice, so you make me rejoice. Girl, your bumper up and up, she a back it up and up, like a dumper choke and up, the third leg up and up. If I not Remy, then I Johnny Walker. Me feel nice for me warm brata. Marshall, I went from my show data. Whoa, oh, sexy lady, your waistline amaze me. Come here, girl, me turn in a VIP. Bend your back, girl, sing it on it and hey, sexy lady, your waistline amaze me. Come here, girl, me turn in a VIP. Bend your back, girl, sing it on it and come in love how she pon me. Like a guitar she play pon me. Nobody move, girl, stay pon me. And turn it back way pon me. They love how she,